Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys about something a little different. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and what I want to talk to you guys about today, a lot of you may or may not know, because you don't always follow my stances on things, and that's okay, that I am generally pro-legalization of gear, anabolics, whatever you want to call them. I'm pro-responsible use, and generally against abuse of these substances, and I've held that stance for many, many years. I've held that stance a really long time. And I don't want to sound like I'm crying over spilled milk, but last night as I was laying in bed, I kind of came to an epiphany that I've realized that even though I support educated use of these things, I support legalization, I've come to realize that the fitness world and the training world has reached a point to where we are worse off for these substances being there. Meaning, the harm that they have done exceeds the good. And I know that's going to sound like a crazy stance coming from me for some people who know what my stance has been on this and the gear chats and everything, but it's the truth. It is the actual truth at this point. And you know, it's a realization that I've come to. It's a realization that I've come to that we would actually be better off if this stuff had never been discovered by lifters. I mean, obviously these things have very powerful medical uses that have saved many, many, many lives. They're fantastic medicines for curing all sorts of issues. But as far as people using it to enhance their physique and performance, it has actually done more harm than good. And you know, I've always held that stance that a person's body is their body. And if you're a grown adult and you're educated on something, you should have the right to do with your body as you please. I believe in that. I've believed in that a long time. It's your body to do with as you please. You own it. No one else. I don't believe society owns your body. I don't believe a government owns your body. It's yours. And you should have that right. But we've reached a point to where people have abused this particular right to the point to where the amount of social harm that it has caused is overwhelming. And the reason I say that is because what it has done to the whole training world is created unrealistic standards because of the social norms around it. Because this is something that has always been legally taboo, yet widely used, there's this whole social stigma around not admitting that people use these things. And I've always said that's my biggest problem with fake natties, is that they're being used to rip people off. But the reality is this stuff is so far reaching at this point that people's standards have been destroyed to the point to where everyone who looks good by internet standard is probably on a fair amount of certain types of gear. All right, they are. And then people say that, well, why do you say that everyone who looks good is on gear? You know, people aren't understanding it's actually the other way around. I don't think that they look good. I'm not attracted to men's bodies. I don't think men's bodies are attractive no matter what they do. I just don't see it. I don't think it's a particularly beautiful or attractive thing. So I don't think they look good at all. When I make those statements, I'm saying that the standards that have been created on the internet today were created based off chemically enhanced physiques. So if the standards that you have were created with chemically enhanced physiques, everyone who meets the standard that you have set is most likely on stuff. And they're most likely on a fair amount of it. See, it's not the other way around. I'm not saying that people that look good are on. I'm saying the standard was created by people who are on. That's where our benchmark has been set. And anyone who falls short of that, by internet standards, no matter how hard they train, no matter how well they eat, are simply not going to be able to keep pace. And the problem is that creates is that people get sucked into this industry. They get sucked into this subculture, and they're given a standard that requires them to use things. And they'll end up squandering money, time, years trying to reach a goal without using this stuff. And then to reach the goal, they basically get sucked into using something because of a culture and possibly an illegal substance, because they eventually learn the truth, and the thing that they have set their heart on requires them to do this. And then what they often find is that the people who they admired and looked up to weren't on just a little, so they start using stuff, and then they oftentimes find they have to reach the abuse point in order to achieve their goal. So you take people who originally started training who wanted to be natty, wanted to be clean, and they end up eventually finding themselves at the abuse level. And I think that's kind of a sad thing. And it's not the fault of people who are out there saying, hey, these guys aren't natty. It's the fault of an industry that has supported this and propped this up. And the problem is that it's now a Pandora's box. It's open that we can't shut. So it's created this unrealistic standard that requires that, unfortunately. And the worst part is that people have learned that it's marketable to lie about it. And I don't just mean the simian pandas of the world. I'm not talking about the really big guys. I'm not talking about the guys who are 230, 235 and ripped. Because everyone with two brain cells together knows that they're on gear. Everyone knows that they are. Everyone with any sense. The only people who don't believe that are young, naive kids who are kind of new to the iron game. All right? Everyone knows that they're on. The problem is that it's created a market to where people who still want to hang on to that natty thing, and by the way, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with people going enhanced. I come from a different generation. I came from a generation, in fact, people don't think that I'm telling the truth. Lobliner told this same story, and we agreed and had made back and forth videos years ago about this. We came from a generation to where the old school guys expected you to put in work before you used gear. Even I believe Junkie Ward has said the same thing. So you've had several of us older guys say, no, it used to be that way. It used to be that way 20 years ago. The guys who went and got on gear before they built a strength base or put in the work and built a base were shunned by the older guys. They wouldn't even help them find gear. Sometimes the dealers wouldn't sell it to them. All right? Now it's a different world. And it was a certain thing of you had to put in your work first. And that's just the way that culture was. But you know what? That's a tradition. Doesn't mean that that's right or wrong. Because, I'll have younger kids ask me today, so what if I don't want to build a base? I have a goal that I want to reach. What's wrong with me using a hack to reach the goal that I've set that I feel that'll make me happy and make me more fulfilled faster and more efficiently? What's wrong with doing something more efficient? And I don't have a good counter argument to that. So when these kids make that argument, my only counter argument is, because back in the old days, that's just not how it was done. You know what? That's not a strong logical argument. That really isn't that good of an argument. So when they say this, I don't have one other than, maybe you need to build a base and not risk your health. Maybe you'll get hurt less easily. They'll say, what if I follow the training principles that you set out for me to get injured at a lower rate? Shouldn't I be just fine then? What if I use stuff also that strengthens connective tissue? Well, then I don't have that argument at that point now, do I? My only counter argument is, just be careful because it might be illegal. You get in trouble. You could have different problems from it. And they'll be like, yeah, but you're pro-legalization. So I don't have a counter argument for these kids who come up with that. I mean, they're technically right. They're technically right. Whether I like it or not, I can have a personal choice there and belief, but logically speaking, I can't really counter their argument. What's wrong with them being more efficient? Why does everything have to be about hard work? Well, I guess it doesn't, does it? I mean, if you can achieve something with less work, why wouldn't you, I suppose? If you're willing to pay the price. In that case, the price could be financial. The price could be your health. The price could be legal. But, I mean, like with anything else in life, shortcuts come at a price. But if a person's willing to pay it, I don't have a counter argument to that. Which kind of, goes back to the point, though. We have standards that have been set to where people can't be happy unless they reach an unobtainable standard that requires these substances. If they had never seen anyone who used these substances, everyone would think someone like Steve Reeves looked like a god. That would be like the sort of goal that men set, their 5-year goal in the gym. It would be a little bit different, wouldn't it? If they had never seen anyone who had been blasting a bunch of gear, they would never have a comparison. They wouldn't have a concept. And the people would be just as happy without taking any of those risks or paying the price, ultimately. But back to the other point, we have a situation to where the existence of it, the availability of it, and the naivety of people, it allows people to get conned. Because you see a lot of this. I mean, let's be honest here, guys. If you think most of the guys doing YouTube fitness aren't on something, you don't understand marketing. You don't understand reality, because why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be? And particularly if they're not that big, they just have that certain aesthetic look and they suddenly make some progress. How do you know that they're clean? People always say, well, because they didn't blow up that fast. Only they changed in a certain way. They reshaped their body. It's clearly the superior methods they have that they're marketing and promoting. Is that clearly it? How do you know? Does everyone blow up automatically who uses some stuff? I don't think so. That's not been my observation. Depends on what they use. It depends on how much. Depends on how much they eat. But it creates the ability to falsely market training protocols, diets, supplements to enormous numbers of people. And it's downright scary, because it has been used, something that I used to always think was, a positive thing. It's okay. It's people's choice. It's reached a point, such an enormous tipping point, to where it is used as the primary marketing strategy. And let's be honest here, if it wasn't for gear, some of these horrifically bad training protocols wouldn't exist. Meaning, if no one had ever used gear and everyone was stuck to being natty, most people would train in full body or an upper lower. No one would be using a body part split. No one would be using a leg day. No one would be using chest day, because none of the guys who had the biggest physiques, none of the guys with the highest strength levels, any of that would be training that way, so no one would be using it. But because the gear gives such a curve, horrifically bad training protocols can be effective in those people. And then people assume that that's the secret. And the reality is that's not the case. I mean, look at exactly what people were talking about. Were trying to tell me when I talked about the Rashid video yesterday with Kai Green. And I'm like, well, he's getting weak. And everyone's like, well, he's just following what Kai Green does. And to me, that was the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I don't understand why you would let someone else who you're working out with dictate the weights that you use. Let them lead. Why? Why would you do that? Why shouldn't you use the weight that you need to be using for where you are and for where you're at in your program? Why would you use someone else's weights? And the fact of the matter is, a guy that size pumping a little ridiculously lightweight the way he's doing it, that would never build muscle to any large extent in the real world without absurd amounts of enhancement in his system. That's the only way he gets away with that. But yet there you have it. And then people see the training that a lot of these guys do and assume that's the secret. Well, the same thing is often done down at the lower level. And I've seen multiple examples of this, of people who very possibly jumped on a little bit of gear to market their training. There's several possible cases of this in YouTube lately, and guys who've actually got good sized followings from doing this. They come up with their own new training concepts. All of a sudden they make some gains. And then they claim they were natty gains, and then they'll point out that everyone else out there is enhanced. Which again, I've talked a lot about. Maybe I'm responsible for people being able to market that. Who knows? Maybe me, a Durian Writers, a couple other people out there. But they then market on that, and that's the reason they're not massive. That's the reason they just made some good, solid gains out of what they're doing now, because they're natty, and all those other guys are on a lot of gear. But the truth is, all they have to do is use just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, they have something marketable. They have something marketable that they can sell. And then people are naive. And I would always ask these people, well, how do you know that they're actually natty? How do you know that they did that natty? Or what makes you think they didn't just go on a bit of gear so that they could sell something, so that they could earn money and just lie about it? Why? Because you think they're a really moral person? You think they're a really moral person so that they wouldn't go do something like that and lie about it to make money? I've seen a lot of supposedly moral people in my life do some pretty shady things for money. All right, I've seen a lot of it. I've been in this world a long time compared to a lot of the younger guys here. I'm 40 years old. Believe me, I've seen a lot of good people turn their ethics to the side when it comes to making a decent amount of money, particularly when it's a pretty good chunk. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what a lot of people will do to make an extra 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. people who you thought of as good people. That's the real world. So people will say that, and it's always, well, how do you know that? Well, because they didn't make enormous gains. They didn't just blow up. They didn't gain 50 pounds of muscle. That's all you have. Again, allows people to be conned. And yeah, I've really come to that conclusion just observing this and thinking about it. As much as I might support legalization, as much as I might support a person's right to do this, it has caused an enormous amount of harm within this community that has nothing to do with people's health. It has nothing to do with, oh, people are dying from it, because people aren't. Not that many people die from this stuff who doesn't abuse. It's the fact that it's been used to create all sorts of unrealistic standards. It harms people's self-esteem, harms people's viewpoints, harms people's ability to grasp what's obtainable realistically. And it has allowed people to create an enormous marketing machine that probably sells billions of dollars of products a year to the naive and to the gullible. I mean, it's created something really horrific. Something that I always just consider something people use a little bit of for whatever self-improvement. Get a little bigger, get a little stronger, reach their goals faster, has been turned into something that actually is truly negative and harmful. And so yeah, I honestly have to say, when I look at it, the existence of gear has not been positive for the fitness and online lifting community, not at all. If anything, it has created something that I almost don't want to be a part of, something that a lot of us, if we were to look at it objectively and ethically, we should be ashamed of. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.